The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Section 4, The Vedanta, Part 2. I will not translate this word to you in English because the idea does not exist in Europe. It is untranslatable. The modern attempts of German philosophers is to translate the word Atman by the word self. And until that word is universally accepted, it is impossible to us or to use it. So, call it as self or anything. It is our Atman. This Atman is the real man behind. It is the Atman that uses the material mind and its instruments. Its antakaran has is the psychological term for the mind. And the mind, by means of a series of internal organs, works the visible organs of the body. What is this mind? It was only the other day that the Western philosophers have come to know that the eyes are not the real organs of vision, but that behind these are the other organs, that is the indriyas. And if these are destroyed, a man may have 1,000 eyes like Indra, but there will be no sight for him. Your philosophy starts with this assumption that by vision is not meant the external vision. The real vision belongs to the internal organ, the brain center itself, or brain center inside. You may call them what you like, but it is not that the indriyas are the eyes, or the nose, or the ear. And the sum total of all these indriya plus the manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankar, etc. is what is called the mind. And if the modern physiologist comes to tell you that brain is what is called mind and that brain is formed of the say of the sum so many organs, you need not be afraid at all. Tell him that your philosophers knew it always. It is one of the very first principle of your religion. Well, then, we have to understand now what is meant by this manas, buddhi, chitta, and some ahankara, etc. First of all, let us take chitta. It is the mind stuff, a part of Mahat. It is a generic. It is the generic name for the mind itself. Includes all its various states. Suppose on the summer evening there is a lake, smooth and calm, without a ripple on its surface. And suppose someone throws a stone into the lake. What happens then? First, there is an action, the blow given to the water. Next, the water rises and sends a reaction towards the stone, and that reaction takes the form of a wave. First, the water vibrates a little and immediately sends back a reaction in the form of a wave. The chitta, let us compare to this lake. The chitta, let us compare to this lake, and the external object are like the stones thrown into it. As soon as it comes in contact with the external objects by means of these indriyas, the indriyas must be there to carry these external objects inside, and there is a vibration, what is called manas, indecisive. Indecisive. Next, there is a reaction, the interdeterminative faculty, buddhi. Next, there is a reaction, the determinative faculty, buddhi. And along with this buddhi flashes the idea of aham and the external object. Suppose there is a mosquito sitting upon your hand. This sensation is carried to the chitta and it vibrates a little. This is a psychological manas. Then there is a reaction, and immediately comes the idea that I have a mosquito on my hand and that I have to drive it off. Thus, these stones are thrown into the lake. But in the case of the lake, ever blows that comes to it is from the external world. While in the case of the lake of the mind, the blows may either come from the external world or from the internal world. The whole series is what is called as Anthakaran. Along with it, you ought to understand one thing more that will help us to understanding the Advait system later on. It is this. All of you must have seen pearls and most of you know how pearls are formed. A grain of a sand enters in the shell of the pearl oyster and sets up has irritation there. And the oyster body reacts towards the irritation and covers the little particle with its own juice that crystallizes and forms a pearl. So the whole universe is like that. It is a pearl which is being formed by us. What we get from the external world is simply the blow. Even to be conscious of that blow, we have to react. And as soon as we react, we really project a portion of our own mind towards the blow. And when we come to know of it, it is really our own mind as it has been shaped by the blow. Therefore, it is clear even to those who want to believe in the hard and the fast realism of the external world, which cannot but admit in these days of physiology that supposing we represent the external world by X, let's suppose we represent the external world by X. What we really know is X plus mind. And this mind element is so greater that it has covered the whole of that X, which has remained unknown and unknowable throughout. And therefore, if there is an external world, it is always unknown and unknowable. What we know of it is as it is molded, formed, fashioned by our own mind. So, with the internal world, the same applies to our own soul, the Atman. In order to know the Atman, we shall have to know it through the mind, and through what little we know of this Atman is simply the Atman plus the mind. That is to say, the Atman covered over, fashioned, and molded by the mind, and nothing more. We shall return to this a little later, but we will remember what has been told here. The next thing is to understand is this. The question arose that this body is the name of one continuous stream of matter. Every moment we are adding material to it, and every moment materials is being thrown off by it, like a river continuously flowing, vast masses of water always changing places. At all the same, we take up the whole thing in imagination and call it the same river. What do we call the river? Every moment the water is changing, the shore is changing, every moment the environment is changing. What is the river then? It is the name of the series of changes. So, with the mind, that is the great Shanika, Shanika Vidnaya Vada documentary. Shanika Vidnaya Vada documentary or doctrine. Most difficult to understand but most rigorously and logically worked out of the Buddhistic philosophy. And this arose in India in opposition to the other part of the Vedanta that had to be answered, and we shall see later on how it could only be answered by Advaitism and not by nothing else. We will see also how, in spite of the people's curious notion about Advaitism, people fright about Advaitism. It is the salvation of the world because therein alone is to be found the reason of things. Dualism and other are very good as means of worship, very satisfying to the mind, and maybe they have helped the mind onward. But if man wants to be rational and religious at the same time, Advait is the one system in the world for him. Well, now we shall regard the mind as a similar river continuously filling itself at one end and emptying itself at the other end. Where is that unity which we call the Atman? The idea is that in spite of this continuous change in the body and in spite of this continuous change in the mind, there is in us something that is unchangeable, which makes our ideas of things appear unchangeable. When rays of light coming from the different quarters fall upon a screen or a wall or upon something that is not unchangeable, then and then alone it is possible for them to form one complete whole. Where is this unity in the human organ? Falling upon which has it where the various ideas will come to unite and become one complete whole. This certainly cannot be the mind itself, seeing that it also changes. Therefore, there must be something which is neither the body nor the mind, something which changes, not sometime something permanent, upon which all our ideas, our sensation fall to form a unity and a complete whole. And this is a real soul, the Atman of man. And seeing that everything material, whether you call it a fine matter or mind, must be changeful, seeing that what you call the gross matter, the external world, must also be changeful in the comparison to that. This unchangeable something cannot be of material substance. Therefore, it is a spiritual. That is to say, it is not matter. It is indestructible, unchangeable. Next will come another question. Apart from those old arguments which only rise in the external world, the argument is support of design. Who created this external world? Who created matter, etc.? The idea here is to know truth only from the inner nature of man, and question arises just in the same way as it arose about the soul, taking for granted that there is a soul unchangeable in a man, in each man, which is neither the mind nor the body. There is still a unity of idea among the souls, a unity of feeling, of sympathy. How is it possible that my soul can act upon your soul? Where is the medium through which it can work? There is a medium through which it can act. How is it I can feel anything about our soul, about your soul? What is that is in touch both with your soul and my soul. Therefore, there is the metaphysical necessity of admitting another soul, for it must be a soul which act in contact with all the different souls and in and through matter. One soul which covers and interpenetrates all the infinite number of souls in the world, in and through which they live, in and through which they sympathize, and love and work for one another. And this universal soul is Paramatma, the Lord God of the universe. Again, it follows that because the soul is not made of matter, since it is spiritual, it cannot obey the laws of matter. It cannot be judged by the law of matter. It is therefore unconquerable, birthless, deathless, and changeless. नैनं छिदन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं छिदन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावका नैनं दहति पावका न चैनं क्लेदयन्त क्लेदयन्त्यापो न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुता नित्यं नित्यः सर्वगताः स्थाणुरचलो अयं सनातनः नित्यः सर्वगताः स्थाणुरचलो अयं सनातनः. This self weapon cannot pierce, nor fire can burn, water cannot wet, nor air can dry up, changeless, all pervading, unremoving, immovable, eternal is this self of man. We learn according to the Gita and the Vedanta that this individual self is also Vibhu, and according to the Kapila, is omnipresent. Of course, there is a sect in India which hold that the self is Anu, infinitely small, but what they mean is Anu in manifestation. Its real nature is Vibhu, all pervading. Vibhu, all pervading. There comes another idea, starling perhaps, at a characteristically Indian idea. And if there is any idea that is common to all our sect, it is this. Therefore, I beg you to pay attention to this one idea and to remember it, for this is the very foundation of everything that we have in the India. The idea is this. You have heard of the doctrine of the physical evolution preached in the West world by the German and the English savants. It tells us that the bodies of the different animal are really one. The difference that we see are but different impressions of the same series that from the lowest form to the highest man. And the most saintly man, it is but one. The one changing into the another, and so on, going up and up, higher and higher until the attains perfection. We had that idea also, declares our Yogi Patanjali. One species, the jati, is species. One species, the jati, is species, changes into another species, that is evolution. Parinama, parinama means one change, one thing changing into another, just as one species changes into another. Where do we differ from the European? Patanjali says, Prakriti, Prakriti, Prakrit, Prakritya Purat, Prakritya Purat, by the infilling of nature. The Europeans say it is the competition, natural and sexual section, etc., that forces one body to take the form of the another. But here is another idea, a still better analyzing and ongoing deeper into the thing and saying by the feeling of nature. What is meant by the infilling of the nature? We admit that the amoeba goes higher and higher until he becomes a Buddha. We admit that, but we are at the same time as much certain that you cannot get any amount of workout of a machine unless you have put it in some shape or other. The sum total of the energy remains the same. Whatever the forms is, it takes it may take. If you want to measure energy, if you want a mass of energy, at one end, you have got to put it in at the other end. It may be another form, but the amount of energy that should be produced out of it must be the same. Therefore, if a Buddha is the one end of the change, the very amoeba must have been the Buddha also. If the Buddha is the evolved amoeba, the amoeba was the involved Buddha also. If this universe is the manifestation of an almost infinite amount of energy, when this universe was in the state of pralaya, it must have represented the same amount of the evolved energy. It cannot have been otherwise. As such, it follows that every soul is infinite. From the lowest worm that crawls under our feet to the noblest and the greatest saints, all have this infinite power, infinite purity, and infinite everything. Only the difference is in the degree of manifestation. The worm is only manifesting just a little bit of that energy. You have manifested more. Another good man, another God man has manifested still more, and that is all the difference. But that infinite power is there, and all the same, says the Patanjali. Tataha Kshetrikavat. Tataha Kshetrikavat. Like the pleasant irrigating his field. Through a little corner of his field, he brings water from the reservoir somewhere, and perhaps he has got a little lock that prevents the water from rushing into the field. When he wants water, he has supply to open the lock and in rush the water of its own power. The power has not to be added. It is already there in the reservoir. So every one of us, every being has his own background, such a reservoir of strength, infinite power, infinite purity, infinite bliss, and existence infinite. Only this lock, this body, are hindering us from expressing what we really are to the fullest. And as these bodies become more and more finely organized, as the tamoguna becomes the rajaguna, and as the rajaguna becomes a sattva guna, more and more of this power and purity becomes manifest, and therefore it is that our people has been so carefully about eating and drinking and the food questions. It may be that the original ideas have been lost, just as with our marriage, which, though not belong to the subject, I may take as an example. If I have another opportunity, I will talk of to you about this. But let me tell you now that the ideas behind our marriage system are the only ideas through which there can be a real civilization. There cannot be anything else. If a man or a woman were allowed the freedom to take up any man or woman as a wife and husband, if individual pleasure, satisfaction of the animal instinct were to be allowed to the run laws of the society, the result will be evil. Evil children's, wicked children's, and demonical children's. Men in every country is on the one hand producing these brutal children and on the other hand multiplying the police force to keep these brutals down. The question is not how to destroy the evil that way, but how to prevent the very birth of evil. And so long as you live in the society, your marriage certainly affects every member of it, and therefore society has the right to dictate whom you shall marry and whom you shall not. The great idea of this kind have been behind the system of marriage here, what they call the astrological gati of the bride and the bridegroom. And in passing, I may remark that, according to Manu, a child who was born of lust is not an Aryan. The child whose very conception and whose death is according to the rules of Vedas, such is an Aryan. Yes, and less of these Aryan children are being produced in every country, and the result is the mass of evil, which we call Kali Yuga. But we have lost all these ideas. It is true, we cannot carry all these ideas to the fullest length now. It is perfectly true, we have made almost a caricature of some of these ideas, great ideas. It is lamentably true that the father and mother are not what they were in the old times. Neither is the society so educate as it used to be. Neither has society that love for individuals that is used to have. But however faulty the working out may be, the principle is sound, and if its application has become defective, if one method has failed, take up the principle and work it out better. Why kill the principle? The same applies to the four questions. The work and details are dead. The work and details are bad, and very bad indeed. But that does not hurt the principle. The principle is eternal and must be there. Work is out afresh and makes a reforming or reformed application. This is the one great idea of the Atman which every one of our sect in India has to believe. Only as we shall find the dualist preach that the Atman by the evil works becomes shaku, shankuchit, sankuchit. The dualistic preach that this Atman by evil works becomes sankuchit, that is, all its power and its nature becomes contracted, and by good work again the nature becomes expands. And the dualistic or the Advaitist says that the Atman never expands nor contract, but seems to do so. It appears to have become contracted. That is all the difference. But all have the one idea that our Atman has all the powers already, not that anything will come to it from the outside, not that anything will drop into it from the skies. Mark you, your Vedas are not inspired but expired. Not that they came from anywhere outside, but they are the internal laws living in every soul. The Vedas are the souls of the ant. The Vedas are in the soul of the ant, in the soul of the god. The ant has only to evolve and get the body of the sage or the rishi, and the Vedas will come out, eternal laws expressing themselves. This is the one great idea to understand that our power is already ours. Our salvation is already within us. Say either that it has become contracted or say that it has been covered with the veil of Maya. it matters little. The idea is there already. You must have to believe in it. Believe in the possibility of everybody, that even is the lowest man, there is the same possibility as in the Buddha. This is a doctrine of the Atman. But now comes a tremendous fight. Here are the Buddhists who equally analyze the body into the material stream and has equally analyzed the mind into another. And has for this Atman, they state that it is unnecessary, so we need not assume the Atman at all. What use of the substance and the qualities adhering to the substance? We say gunas, qualities, qualities alone, gunas, qualities, and qualities alone. It is illogical to assume two causes where one will explain the whole thing, and the right right went on, and the fight went on, and all the theories which held the doctrine of the substance were thrown to the ground by the Buddhists. There was a breakup all along the line of those who held on to the doctrine of substance and qualities, and that you have a soul, and I have a soul, and everyone has a soul. Separate separate from the mind and the body, that each one is an individual. So far, we have seen that the idea of dualism is all right, for there is a body and there is then the fine body, mind. That is this Atman, there is this Atman, and in and through all the Atmans is the Paramatman, God. The difficulty is here that this Atman and Paramatman are both called substance, to which the mind and the body is so called substance, adhere like so many qualities. Nobody has ever seen a substance, nor can ever conceive. What is use of thinking of that this substance? Why not become a shanika become a Shanikavadani and say that whatever exists is this succession of mental currents and nothing more. They do not adhere to each other. They do not form a unit. One is chasing the other. This wave is the ocean, never complete, never forming one unit whole. Man is a succession of waves, and when one goes away, it generates another, and the cessation of these waves forms this waveform is what called as nirvana. You see, the dualism is a mute before this. It is impossible that it can bring up an argument, and a dualistic God also cannot be retained here. The idea of God that is omnipresent and yet it is a personal who creates without hand and moves without feet and so on, and who has created the universe has a kumbhakara, kumbhakar, kumbhakara, that is the potter, creates the ghata, that is the pot. The Buddhists declare is childish, and what that if this is God, he is going to fight this God and not worship it. This universe is full of misery. If it is work of God, we are going to fight this God. And secondly, this God is illogical and impossible, as all of you are aware. We need not go into the defect of the design theory, as all are shanikas have shown them full well, and so this personal God fell to the pieces. Truth and nothing but truth is the watchword of the Advaitis. Satyam jayate na anritam satyena panthya vitanto devayana. Truth alone trumps and not untruth. Through truth alone, the way of God, Devayan, lies. Everybody marches forward under that banner, but it is only to crush the weaker man and the position by his own. You come you come with your dualistic idea of God to pick the quarrel with a poor man who is worshipping an image, and you think you are wonderfully rational and you can confound him. But if he turns around and shatters your own personal God and calls that an imaginary idol, where are you? You fall back on faith, and so on, or raised to cry of the ethics, the old cry of the weak man. Whosoever defeats him in this is an atheist. If you are to be rational all along the line, and if not, allow another the same privilege which you ask for yourself. How can you prove the existence of this God? On the other hand, it can be almost disproved. There is not a shadow of a proof as to his existence, and there are very strong arguments to the contrary. How will you prove his existence with your God and his gunas and an infinite number of souls which are substance and each soul an individual? In what are you an individual? You are not as a body, for you know today better than even the Buddhist of the old knew that what may have been matter in the sun has just now become matter in you and will go out and become matter in the plants. And then where is your individuality, Mr. So and so? The same applies to the mind. Where is your individuality? You have one thought tonight and another tomorrow. You do not think the same way as you thought when you were a child, and an old man do not think the same way as they did when they were young. Where is your individuality then? Do you not say it is in consciousness, this ahankar, because this only covers the small part of your existence. While I am talking to you, all my organs are working and I am not conscious of it. If consciousness is a proof of existence, they do not exist then. Because I am not conscious of them, where are you then with your personal God theory? And how can you prove such a such a God? Again, the Buddhist the Buddhist will stand up and declare not only is it illogical but immoral, for it teaches men to be a coward and to seek existence outside, and nobody can give such help. Here is the universe. Man made it. Why? Then depends on an imaginary being outside whom nobody ever saw or felt or got help from. Why then you do what why then do you make cowards of yourself and teach your children that the highest state of man is to be like a dog and go quarreling before the imaginary being, saying that you are weak and impure and that you are everything while in the universe? On the other hand, the Buddhist may argue with the only that you tell a lie, but that you bring a tremendous amount of evil among upon your children. Mark you, mark you, this world is one of the hyp- hypnotization. Whatever you tell yourself, that you become. Almost the first words the great Buddha uttered were, "What you think that you are, what you will think that you will be." If this is true, do not teach yourself that you are nothing, that you cannot do anything unless you are helped by somebody who does not live here but sits above the clouds. The result will be that you will be more and more weakened every day by constantly repeating, "We are very pure. God, Lord, make us pure." The result will be that you will hypnotize yourself into the sort of vices. The Buddhists say that 90% of these vices that you see in every society are on account of this idea of a personal God. And this is an awful idea of the human being, that the end and the aim of this expression of life, this wonderful expression of life, is to become like a dog. Says the Buddha to the Vaishnavas, if your ideal, your aim and goal is to go to the place that is Vaikuntha, where God lives and there stands before Him with folded hands all through entire eternity, it is better to commit suicide than do that. The Buddhists may even urge that is why he is going to create annihilation, nirvana, to escape this. I am putting these ideas before you as a Buddhist just for the time being because nowadays all these Advaitic ideas are said to make you immoral, and I am trying to tell you how the other side looks. Let us face both sides boldly and bravely.